Here's what's coming up on today's show.
Also here on page 98, investor Bill Mann once wrote, "There is no faster way to feel rich than to spend lots of money on really nice things. But the way to be rich is to spend money you have and not to spend money you don't have. It's really that simple."
This is the Money Master Podcast from Brindle and Bay Wealth Management with Tori Tenhagen, Connie Davis, and certified financial planner Nick Davis.
Welcome back to the Money Master Podcast. This is another book club episode, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. If you've been following this, you know what it's all about. If you haven't been following this, you can find the other episodes on our channel, either on YouTube or on where you can find your podcast, and you can listen to those and follow along. It's a fantastic book, and today we're doing chapters 9 and 10. We've got Connie and Tori here with me. You ready to talk about this today?
Yes.
Yep.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm excited to talk about Chapter 9, Wealth is What You Don't See. I found this so insightful, as many of the chapters, but some of the chapters just seem to stick out a little bit more. What about you?
When you have a million underlines and highlights, and this turns into a really long podcast because we're going to read every quote. But yeah, it's really good.
I mean, he's such a great writer, Morgan Housel. I mean, he's definitely wise beyond his years. He writes very, very well, easy to read, lots of anecdotes, and it's just easy to follow. I mean, every chapter is kind of you could just pick up the book, look at any chapter, and read it standalone.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So chapter 9, wealth is what you don't see. So again, wealth is what you don't see. Spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money.
I think this is a great chapter to read with, if you have children, grandchildren, teaching them. This chapter talks about the difference between wealth and riches,
yeah.
Right? Someone who is rich versus someone who is wealthy.
Yep. This reminds me of the books that I used to read that actually inspired me to get into the financial profession, which was by Thomas J. Stanley, the Millionaire Next Door series. But he talked about back in those days, in the early 90s, millionaires, they wore $200 suits. They drove Ford pickup trucks back when Ford pickup trucks didn't cost as much as Corvettes. And they spent most of their time at their kids' baseball games and their grandchildren's baseball games and enjoyed, unstructured time with family.
Right.
And he talked in that book about high net worth versus high income. So this chapter really reminds me of wealthy versus riches. Living where we live and being stationed where we're at, here in North Texas, it speaks a lot because...
Yeah. I mean, Austin and I have had this conversation a million times, like looking at people our age with kids our age and our situation. You're like, man, they're driving that car. Like, You're like, they're probably in a lot of debt. And
Yes.
I'm okay not being in that kind of debt. Like I'm all right with my little Toyota.
Yeah.
That's all right.
I have to agree with you so much. We talk to our kids about, the school they go to, and they have all these kids driving these cars. I'm like, you can have an old BMW or you can have a newer Honda. Mm-hmm. Which headache would you rather have, because we know anybody can afford a BMW with 300,000 miles and a bunch of work to be done all the time. You can have something that looks pretty, right? But what's wiser? And thankfully, my kids chose the Honda because, it's like, listen, you're going to get to sell that and use that money. Which one's going to hold value better? Which one's going to be easier to repair? But we're at a disadvantage. We're kind of at a nice advantage, Tori, because we see things that other people don't see. Mm-hmm. People are very vulnerable with financial planners because they're telling us, like, okay, here's my finances. And we know what you should be spending,
Right.
And it's so clear what wealthy people are versus high income people. And, if you're spending that money on that stuff, does your wealth really match it? Like, do you, and
Well, and I've told you before, I've met with people who, come in here with lots of retirement savings and they're going to live. I know that just from their personality and their conversations and how they spend, they're going to live well within their means, have a great retirement. Now, there's the flip side of that. There's also people who may or may not have that same amount saved. And I'm a little worried they're going to not know how to control their spending, because they do have that desire to, I need. And I'm like, that conversation's very different with that person of let's make sure you're actually aware of this is what you can afford.
Yeah. It's very hard. I don't know if it's in this chapter or the next one, but he talks about, I think it's the next chapter when he talks about saving. We'll get to in a little bit, but he talks about, like, do people need to be told to save? And he's like, yes, they do need to be told to save. But kind of going back to this idea between wealth and riches, I made a note here in my margins, and that is, I noticed that if you see our clients, what you'll see is somebody who looks relaxed because they're taking time with their families. They've taken the time to make sure that they're purposeful with their money. They're not anxious anymore. I used to say this thing for years, and it was trying to come back to me. Money spends better when with an up-to-date plan. All money spends better with an up-to-date plan. Meaning, if you have permission to take that vacation because you gave yourself permission,
right? There's a difference in
versus
you
putting
telling,
on a credit card. Putting on the credit card is my last trip ever. Right.
Well, there's a difference in telling your money where to go versus the money saying I have to go. Like your ownership to it. It owns you. Versus you saying I'm putting my money there.
Yeah. Yes. I know. That's very, very good. So what else stood out to you?
Well, on page 98, this is my favorite quote of the entire chapter. Wealth is financial assets that haven't yet been converted into the stuff you see. So wealth is hidden.
Well, that's what on page 99.
Yes.
Wealth is hidden. It's income not spent.
Right.
Wealth is an option not yet taken to buy something later. Its value lies in offering you options, flexibility, and growth to one day purchase more stuff than you could right now.
Yes.
It's the wait. It's the delayed gratification.
Yeah. It's the I know I have it, but I'm choosing not to use it right now.
Yep.
Whereas rich is a current income. Someone driving a $100,000 car is almost certainly rich because even if they purchase the car with debt, you need a certain level of income to afford the monthly payment, right? Same with people who live in big homes. It's not hard to spot rich people, right? They often go out of their way to make themselves known, which, we can all chuckle about because we all understand that. But the idea that wealth is hidden, and think about the contrast of the emotional state of someone who is rich in their current income, but maybe they don't have the wealth.
Yes.
Right. You're a lot more stressed, Nick, like what you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah.
A lot more anxious.
We taught our children, because somebody taught me this years ago, and I don't remember which book it came from, but it stood out to me many, many, many years ago, and that is having money will make you confident. And it shouldn't be the source of your confidence. We should have a better self-image.
But it brings some peace of mind to know you have it.
It creates confidence. Yeah. Right. I think it's Kevin O'Leary that said, don't, I'm not advocating this, but he said, you need to get $5 million so that you can then go do whatever you want and be confident. Make your first $5 million and then set it aside. Do boring stuff with your first $5 million and then go do crazy stuff.
says a
billionaire.
Billionaire, yeah.
But there is something that happens when you use money to buy your freedom, as we've been talking about in previous episodes, and what it does to your mindset, what it does knowing that it's there. And if you've got the habit of spending, maybe if you like collecting things, maybe you can learn to like knowing that you
collecting
have
money
stock. Yeah, I like knowing that I'm collecting stock. I really do. I really do. Create the joy and the habit of having and owning other companies, hard assets.
Yeah. And also here on page 98, investor Bill Mann once wrote, there is no faster way to feel rich than to spend lots of money on really nice things. But the way to be rich is to spend money you have and not to spend money you don't have. It's really that simple.
Yeah.
Well, that's the psychology of it, right? That's you feel rich, but are you on a piece of paper practically rich?
Right.
Right.
You may feel it, and that's great, but that's not that's not going to the bank with you.
Yeah, I have to say that I'm really grateful that my grandfather modeled to me living below your means.
Yeah.
I mean, he lived in a 900 square foot house, raised 3 children in that house that he built, and he had rental properties. He bought his piece. He retired early. He had a great retirement, and we have a nice house. We have nice things. Family visit us, and sometimes we have to tell them, we're living below our means.
Yeah.
We're not, I know what it's like to be stretched, and I don't want to be there. I don't want to not be able to pay for my kids to do sports and to not be on track for retirement. So keeping that in mind keeps me from, upgrading to that next level. I know where I have to be able to ever have that. and everybody has to kind of, as we've mentioned many times, know where that goalpost is. And I got to tell you, time freedom and money freedom and having wealth is more important than having things. If you have the things too, great. But
Well, Austin and I have had that conversation occasionally when we talk about, things we want to buy or what's upcoming. These trips are, what is our budget looking like? We have that conversation, and there's moments where it's like, well, we might want to do this. And it's like, that's not the best thing to do right now. And you kind of have that moment of like, I know what we make. Why can we not afford that? And it's like, It's not that we can't. We absolutely could. But I know what I actually want my money to be going towards. That's not the priority.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's not that we couldn't afford it or couldn't do it or couldn't have that nice thing. It's just really not what we want in our end game. That doesn't serve the actual end purpose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, something very controversial is what kind of car do you buy for your kid? Do you buy your kid a car? And Thomas J. Stanley talked about this in the Millionaire Next Door series. He talked about millionaires, their next generation struggle because they think that they deserve the BMW but yet they haven't done anything to create the kind of value that deserves that. And so when you buy, listen, you may hate me for saying this, and I know there's a lot of people in this area that are going to hate me for saying this, but when you buy your kid a brand new luxury car that they haven't earned, what are you teaching them?
Well, it already puts them on the keep up with the...
Yes. And I'm teaching my kids this all the time because, listen, I can afford to buy my kids. We are very fortunate. We can buy that car. However, it's a 2 to 4 year old Honda Civic. Why? Because it doesn't break down, good gas mileage, good resale value, and sorry you want to be driving that sports car around, but you didn't deserve it. If you want to have fun, let's go get a 4-wheeler for that. Let's go get on a 4-wheeler, let's go trail riding, right? But if you want to cruise around town and spend your money on that, you're going to be giving up some other stuff, and that's not what I want to teach you. And I mean, this is a struggle. I mean, it really is.
My mom tells that story. Her first car was a car she very much could not afford, and she regretted it, and then it got stolen.
Oh,
well, since we're talking about go ahead. First cars, mine was a 1978 Ford Pinto panel wagon, stick shift, no power steering, no power brakes. I think it had power brakes. The brakes, you had to pump them to get the car to stop, and no air conditioning. Connie, what was your first car?
Well, my true first car was a piece of crap $500 Ford.
Mine was $1,100.
Ugly looking car.
It was like a Chevette or something. That's how I met you. I came over to fix it for you.
It only lasted like a month, maybe. It died on me. So then, what I like to say, my real first car was a Honda Prelude with the little flip up lights. Oh, that was so fun.
That was a $1,000 car she bought, and she blew it up.
I did.
Because when that thing says hot, when that dial says hot, you're supposed to stop.
Yeah, I didn't.
I'm still going.
I was like, it's hot outside. Of course it's hot.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not trying to lecture people on what they should do for their kids, but I think there's a way that how we view money that matters. And it's a struggle, I mean, it's a struggle.
Well, and I want to say too, as we're talking through these chapters, we don't want to project don't have nice things or don't spend your money or don't go and buy the nice things, because we have the nice things too.
Oh, yeah.
But it's more of the mindset or the psychology of where you're coming from with it.
And what you can actually,
Hey, Nick Davis here. We have a vision to create a rewarding, fulfilling retirement journey for every individual. And we do that through creating well thought out financial plans. Now, if you want to create the next chapter experience filled with calmness and clarity for your life, then our team would love to visit with you about that. It all starts with a 15-minute discovery call that you can set up right there on your phone or your computer. All you have to do is click on the Let's Talk button that's on our website, brindleandbay.com. So you'll go to brindleandbay.com and click Let's Talk. Let's get the conversation started with a short phone call. We would welcome an opportunity to meet you. This chapter is called Wealth is What You Don't See, and this is what I'm always telling my children. What you don't see is the stress they have when they go home at night because they're over leveraged.
Yes.
What you don't
that really nice car is causing them not to sleep at night because they don't know how they're going to.
Even when everything's going perfect. Listen, I'm probably beating up on some people and you're going to hate me, but I'm just going to be honest. High income people, well-employed people, can't afford the nice house, can't afford to give your children brand new luxury types of vehicles. But what you don't see, is it are you on track? Like, does your net worth, Thomas J. Stanley was big about this, does your net worth match where you should be? Meaning, do you have enough saved in a relationship? Because if not, you're just increasing your risk. You're just a high risk person that's all in your job.
Well, but that's why people come in and ask us, am I on track? Am I actually okay? Because wealth is what they don't see. They don't know. They don't know behind the curtain of, well, all these people are driving these nice cars and having these nice houses, but I don't know how much they save for retirement. I don't know if I'm on track because we don't see that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's chapter 9, which brings us to chapter 10, save money. Chapter 10, save money. The only factor you can control generates one of the only things that matters. How wonderful, he says. So we can't control how much our investments make. We can control how much we save, is the moral of the story, right?
Yeah.
So he says in the very first sentence, let me convince you to save money. It won't take long, but it's an odd task, isn't it? Do people need to be convinced to save money? My observation is that yes, many do. So past a certain level of income, people fall into 3 groups. Those who save, those who do not think they can save, and those who don't think they need to save. So my son only saves when he has something he wants to buy. His sisters, though, are always saving a little bit, and we're trying to get him to always be in the habit of saving something.
And my mom I've always been, I grew up, my parents taught us to save for sure, but I was little. My mom always tells me the story of giving us $1 or $2 at the store, and I wouldn't spend it. It just drove me nuts because I couldn't commit. And even Owen has done that, our oldest son. He's walked through the toy aisle like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And he finally told me a few months ago, it's okay. I can afford to spend some of that money that I have because I'll get more. And I'm like, what are you doing? Saving for retirement? He was like, well, yeah. And I'm like, you're not. Yes, you can spend your toy money right now. It's okay. So he'll be well saved.
That's crazy. I just remembered a money lesson we gave our kids years ago, and this would be great for you to tell your children and grandchildren. We did this the very first time we went to Disney, which was in 2015. Our kids would just, grandma would come over, they just spend money. It's just an endless pit, And what we did is when we went to Florida, to Disney World, we gave them $100 each.
Yeah.
And this is in 2015, back when $100 went a little further than it did today. But it's crazy to think that was 9 years ago. But they started to negotiate with themselves. If I buy this, then I can't have that. And that was a powerful, powerful lesson because they went from place to place in Disney Springs trying to figure out, well, if I buy
What
this.
souvenirs do they
my
want?
son was like, why would I buy candy? My parents are buying me ice cream. Why would I buy this all the candy in the candy store when they're going to give me ice cream? I might as well buy something like tangible, like a toy. But it was such a great lesson.
Well, and teaching them that, do you have some buyer's remorse about that? Do you, making them think through what they're actually going to buy.
Yeah. Nobody saved it, though. Actually, I think one of our children, I think it was Abigail, she was like, I'm going to save this money because she's never.
She might have come home with like $20.
Like, don't come home with money, that. There's a time to spend, Something that came up to me when I was reading this chapter is how I see some people trying to make up for a lack of savings through, being able to save money and being able to be efficient in the way you live your life, okay? Meaning not constantly expanding your life. That's the key here. Is like if you do that you can control that. You can control how efficient you are in your life. You can control how much money you spend when you go out to eat. You can't control how much of an investment return you're going to get. But I see people sometimes, not our clients, because we would not bring you on as a client if you were this type of person. But it's, I want to get into penny stocks because I got to make it big, right? Or I'm into something, I'm putting all my money into this hope of this MLM network marketing company, or the dinar, like some kind of currency that's going to go up. Like, oh, don't tell anybody, but this is going to go amazing, right? And they're trying to make up for a lack of savings. We're trying to, we're playing it risky. When, if you're hearing this message, no matter how old you are, it's not too late to start. Even if you feel like it's late in the game, you're going to want to have something saved for that next season. And no matter if you're living strictly off Social Security, having something for, emergency or whatever is going to alleviate. So the point is everybody benefits from saving unless you're already retired. So that just stood out to me. Tori, have you seen that? I mean, have you come across people in your day-to-day where it's like they're almost like gambling with the way they talk about investments?
Well, yes, because it is. It's trying to make up for lost time when really... We say this all the time, boring, staying the course is what works, but that doesn't feel as rewarding when you're trying to make it. And so that doesn't feel like the right way to go when someone's trying to play catch up.
What's the next? The latest one is the next crypto. It's like, hey, I heard this is a good investment, and they just start thinking about putting everything on red. It's like, that is not investing. Investing is buying businesses.
Or the flip side of, I've waited too long, I'm behind, is I can't afford to lose anything, so I'll be super conservative and I'll just stop and protect everything I have. There's both sides of the spectrum because it's a fear reaction.
Yeah.
Instead of just...
It's not the business of investing.
Right.
The business of investing is buying goods and services and property and hard assets. It's a discipline.
Page 106. So people's ability to save is more in their control than they might think. Savings can be created by spending less. Let's point out the obvious.
Well, right above that, past a certain level of income, what you need is just what sits below your ego.
Yeah.
So if you desire less, spend less, or stop chasing the next big thing, you might have the ability to save.
Yes.
And when I was in college, I had this friend, and he told me, and he's a good friend of mine to this day. He said, I almost have to in order for me to save, I have to go into debt. Meaning I have to go and finance a house or a car or a motorcycle to pay for it, because that motivates me to actually put money in that direction. And I'm like, man, that's kind of a problem. Maybe you can motivate yourself before you go into debt, but he was just being really honest. And I think people struggle with that. It's like, it's a natural motivation to pay off a debt. It's like, I'm going to get into debt and then pay it off. And I mean, that's the horrible thing about the world we live in today is I've seen these things where you're going to buy a shirt online, and it's like, oh, you can make it $10 payments to us, or you can pay with PayPal.
Everything.
It's like, yeah. And my daughter has friends in school that are doing that. What?
Fine. Pay with Affirm?
I mean, you're creating a disaster for the future
when
you teach people to do that. I mean, they all need a little bit of Dave Ramsey in their lives to, learn to live within their means. I saw an article this morning, actually, that Dave Ramsey, I think he was on the news, and they were saying, I'm trying to remember which news it was on, but he was saying that the younger generation is pushing back against his message of living within your means. Yeah, they have it now.
Wow.
Yeah, have it now.
Wow, that's going to create a lot of problems.
I predict there's going to be a move back towards conservatism, fiscal conservatism and traditional values because of how far we have strayed from it. I think people are going to crave that. The same way they're craving to get into country homes and not be in the city anymore around
homestead
all the noise.
And tiny homes.
Yeah.
Craving simplicity.
I hope I'm right. Yeah. Let's wrap it up with this. So on page 107, you don't need a specific reason to save. And he points out that the flexibility and control over your time is an unseen return on wealth. There's an unseen return on wealth when you have that flexibility that we've been talking about.
It allows you opportunity.
Yeah. Little bit of discipline. Connie, you were comparing it to how, overeating and fitness earlier today when we were talking about it. Mm-hmm. It takes a little bit of discipline to, the cause and effect. You don't really see the fact that you ate 500 less calories today. You don't see the benefits of it today.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I follow someone on Instagram. She said that too. If you it's the weekend, I'm going to cheat and I'm going to, when you're doing fitness and you're eating healthy and working out, she's like, if you blow the weekends, you literally spend every week losing the same 10 pounds or 2 pounds up and down because you've blown it. And then you do the same thing with money of, I deserve this little thing right now, but you're constantly playing catch up because you're trying to get the next thing.
We all need these little tricks to help us in today's world, right? So anything that can be developed, any apps that can help us to save the change, or, I know we don't love the investment choices inside of 401ks, but we love the fact that people have savings because they, are kind of automated through the workplace, and that has helped a lot of people. So we all need, God help us to have more tricks like that, because we're just dealing with our behavior here, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why this book's called The Psychology of Money.
Well, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and hopefully you took away some helpful tips from The Psychology of Money and our conversation today. We would love to hear your feedback. Leave a comment in the comment section. Tell us what you've been enjoying about the podcast. Tell us what you've been enjoying about the book, something that stood out to you in the book. We'd love to hear from you. Again, thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Hey, it's Nick here. I know that many of our listeners like to read books about financial planning, and I wrote a book called A Wealth of Wisdom, and in it I share a story about my grandpa and his successful retirement. I also point out that his world, he retired in the 1990s, his world was very different from today's retiree. There are certain things that today's retiree must do to be successful in retirement. So there's no cost for the book. All you have to do is text us the word book to our office line, and I'll get that sent over to you right away. The number is 214-988-9178. Again, you'll text the word book to 214-988-9178.
Nick Davis is an investment advisor representative of Brindle & Bay Financial Advisors, a registered investment advisor. This show is for informational purposes only. Any exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered financial advice or recommendation to buy or sell a financial vehicle. You should consult a qualified financial, tax, or legal professional before taking any action. This program is not endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing company. Insurance licensed in Texas, number 1188639. Brindle & Bay Wealth Management is affiliated with Brindle & Bay Financial Advisors.